This dock is off limits to civilians.
I'm terribly sorry, I didn't know. If I see one, I shall inform you immediately.
You! Get away from there! You don't have permission to be aboard there, mate.
I'm sorry, it's such a pretty boat. Ship.
Disney executives called him drunk and tried to fire him. But the studio president said, quote, "I don't understand what he's doing. What was he doing that scared a billion-dollar company? The same thing he did as a teenager in Kentucky with nothing and whatever that thing is. Every single person who has ever worked with him uses the exact same word to describe it.
Exactly funny he
He's the
is.
funniest person I've ever worked with. I wet myself and like pitted out laughing.
Was that in the bathtub?
No, it wasn't.
I did wonder.
Why the water was staying so pleasantly
It
warm.
was so warm.
But here is where it gets strange. Keith Richards actually flew to the set to meet the character he had apparently inspired. And Disney executives watching the dailies thought Depp was high. They asked him directly, "Are you playing this character drunk?" And he said, "I don't know. Possibly."
To me, interesting because I play his father, which, I mean, the only time I call him son is when I've got the whole rig on. Normally, when I'm talking to Johnny, I don't call him, like, "Hey, son," you know what I mean? But it evolves as this sort of character, just the look of it is, and then you look at yourself in the mirror with all of this stuff on and, you know, a couple of pistols. Hey, give me a couple of pistols and a sword and I'm away, you know.
And here is the part nobody talks about. Every one of these characters had studio executives furious before the movie finished, and every single one became iconic. Jack Sparrow, Willy Wonka, Edward Scissorhands. And that is not luck. That is not accident. That is a pattern. And it started somewhere very specific. Tim Burton cast him when nobody else would take the risk. Depp was 26 years old, fresh off a teen TV show, and Burton looked at him and said, "This is my guy." Depp said yes before even reading the full script. Just yes. He did not research the role he moved in. He lived in Thompson's house, read his personal journals, learned his mannerisms down to the way he held a cigarette. And when filming started, Thompson watched the rushes and said, "That is not an impression. That is me." But watch what happens when you trace this all the way back, because the commitment, the refusal to do what the studio wants, the willingness to burn his own career rather than play it safe, none of that started in Hollywood. It started in a trailer park in Owensboro, Kentucky, with a kid who had already learned what it felt like to be left behind. Johnny Christopher Depp II was born in Owensboro, Kentucky, on June 9, 1963, the youngest of 4 children in a family that moved 14 times before he turned 14. Different schools, 14 different neighborhoods, never long enough to build anything real. His mother, Betty Sue, worked as a waitress and struggled with her mental health. His father, John Depp I, was a city engineer who tried to hold it together, and when Johnny was 15, his father left, just walked out, and something in the boy that was already restless became completely untethered. He dropped out of school at 16, not rebellious, not lazy, just gone the same way. His father was gone. He played guitar in a band called The Kids, and they drove across the country to Los Angeles looking for a record deal. They did not get one. But on that trip, a friend introduced him to an actor named Nicolas Cage, and Cage looked at him and said, "You should try acting." And Depp thought and said, "Well, I have nothing to lose." So he walked into his first audition, and he got the part. And the thing he felt in that room, that terrifying, wonderful feeling of disappearing into someone else, never left him. But here is the part nobody talks about. His first real film role was in A Nightmare on Elm Street, where he played a teenager who gets sucked into a bed and consumed by a geyser of blood. And he thought it was the greatest thing that had ever happened to him from that. He went to 21 Jump Street on television and was supposed to be a teen idol, a poster boy. The studio wanted him to smile and be handsome, and that was the entire job. And Depp was absolutely miserable. So he did the only logical thing. He started deliberately trying to get fired. He showed up late, argued with directors, demanded stranger and stranger scenes, but they still would not fire him.
Growing up it didn't feel particularly great, but I think it's led me somehow to where I am today. I'm not saying that I'm completely mad, although I've been accused of that.
So he finally called his agent and said, "Find me the strangest role that exists in Hollywood right now." And that was when his agent called him back with a director named Tim Burton. Remember Edward Scissorhands? Yep. But in 2022, everything collapsed into a very public trial, a very public ex-partner. Every camera in the world pointed at a man being dismantled in real time. And then something happened that nobody in Hollywood expected. He won. And the moment that verdict was read, millions of people watching felt something they hadn't planned on feeling. But what happened 6 months later, almost nobody in entertainment media covered. He walked onto a stage at Cannes, and the room gave him a standing ovation for 7 minutes straight. Watch what happens when you see his face in that moment. That is not relief. That is not gratitude. That is a man who has spent 60 years being exactly who he is, at enormous personal cost. And the world finally catching up to him. You cannot manufacture what you just watched. You can manufacture a performance. You can manufacture a career. You can even manufacture a controversy. But you cannot manufacture a 60-year-old man playing guitar at a festival and meaning every single note. There is something that every person who commits completely to anything eventually learns, and it is this: the world will not always understand what you are doing. Studios will want to fire you. Audiences will turn on you. The people closest to you will tell you to be less, and there will be moments where the cost of being fully yourself feels like more than any person should have to pay. But then something quiet happens. You are standing on a stage in Cannes, France, and a room full of people who finally understand is standing up. Not because you survived, because you never stopped. Johnny Depp has played more than 50 characters across 4 decades, and they are all the same person, a kid from Owensboro, Kentucky, who refused to be told what he was allowed to be, and that more than any role, any award, any trial, or any standing ovation is what nobody commits to, like Johnny Depp. There you have it. And if you love hearing more about your favorite celebrities, please consider subscribing.